Buongiorno, how's it going? I think this one's book talk number 5, or is book talk number 6. I'm not sure. Let me have a look. Oh, it's number 6. Cool. So I read 3 books in the last few weeks now, since reading the Foundation series, and I'm quite excited. And I just want to make another book talk episode because I really like making them. I think the way I want to do it today is I'll go in order from when I read it last, like first off to what I've read them recently. So 3 different books, and I'll need to jog my memory up a bit, but I'll just do it with you guys on camera. I like to write little descriptions of how I felt, but this one talks about. So the first book I'll introduce you is Normal People, which is a really good book, and well, it just talks about how it's a love story between two people, uh and they met in high school, and I guess the guy is a bit more popular in school, and the girl is she's a bit shy, but she's rich, and the guy isn't. So different, I suppose, class and different social standing in school and stuff like that. So they apparently made a show off of Normal People, which is pretty cool. And apparently it's quite popular. I didn't know it was popular. I just went to this cafe where they sell secondhand books to meet up with some friends, and this is just the first one that caught my eye at the store, at the cafe. Um, but yeah, um, so I did write how history shapes us, how people define us, and I wrote about how difficult of a read it was, because I found it was very sexual, very abusive, and I felt like it almost fetishized abuse, and how habit becomes hurt. Um, and by what I mean by how it sexualizes, how like what I mean by that is the book is very sexual. Like first 30-40 pages in, and the two of them are already having sex, and they're in high school. And I mean, majority of the book are based in their university years once they become an adult. But I read the first like 50 pages, and I went, I'm not sure if that's a book that I would like to read, because I felt like it turned very sexual very quick, and it just kept going from there. Really, it was a very sex orientated book. I thought. And what I mean by it fetishizes sex is because, and I feel like I'm gonna spoil this by saying this a bit, but there's gonna be a lot of people that won't have the time to read the book, or won't feel like reading it, and I felt like, especially with the woman partner, they both go through several relationships, and it's a bit of a tragic story. At the end, they get together, and it's a happy ending. But you read more for the how it goes from point A to point B, and I guess the woman especially, she has like several very abusive boyfriends who like beats her up, during sex, or like torments her, or like their idea of sex is like torturing her. Um, and I don't know, I didn't like that. I'm not sure if the book is trying to show us that this is another way of life, and this is how certain situations can happen. But like, uh, I don't know. I felt like it very much fetishized. Like I just felt like it didn't exactly. It was a bit over the top, is what I'm trying to say. Like it was like having all those terrible things happen to her and stuff, just for the sake of the story, is what I'm trying to say. And I didn't necessarily like that. I felt like the author could have introduced that a bit better and stuff. But what do you do? So it was definitely a difficult read at times, and I felt like I didn't really like it, but it was an easy read, and the story was easy to go along with, and And I suppose the ending was quite satisfying because they do get together and it was a happy ending. And it does leave out a cliffhanger a bit because it's like, oh, what happens now in our next life? Because at the end, the guy has to go away for work for a year, and now they're like, ooh, what's gonna happen? And that's when the book ends. So I mean, it was a cool book. I'm just surprised that at the back it says it's won like 10 different awards, and I'm like, how's this book won Book of the Year in 2019 in Britain? Like that makes like that's kind of insane. A book like this won Book of the Year, you know. But but I'm not judging it or anything. I'm giving my 2 cents on it. And I mean it was still, you know, an easy read, I suppose. But I just didn't like how overly sexual it was. And it was done in such a forced manner is what I'm trying to say. And like it made it look brutal and, you know, terrible. And then I was at the bookstore about a month ago and I bought another book, The Silence of the Girls. It's a 3-part series apparently. And it's about it's a story that trails off of the Iliad by Homer. So the Iliad is, you know, and I've read the Iliad several times, but it's a story about how the Greek warriors set off to invade Troy because Helen of Sparta was kidnapped, and then now they got to take Troy. But you know, by saying because of Helen of Troy they invaded Troy is a bit of a, you know, it's not exactly accurate because they probably just invaded them for the sake of invading them, and they just wanted the plunders and the spoils, and that's how invading goes. You don't just invade someone for one person. But The Silence of the Girls, it was I'm gonna be honest. I really didn't like this book. I really didn't like it, and I say that because it was and I'll tell you the good part aspect of it first. I liked that the idea of it was to expand on the story of the Iliad, and then give a perspective on how being a woman would have been like during that time. And I really liked the idea of that and the notion of that. But the book, what it did was it fully demonized all the characters in the original Iliad, and it added a lot of segments on its own. So I really didn't like that. So, for example, um, I forget her name. Yep. So Briseis. So Briseis is supposed to be the woman that Achilles and Agamemnon actually fights over, and that's when Achilles goes and just goes, "Hang on a minute, I'm not gonna fight for you if you're gonna take my woman away from me." And the whole reason why is because the Agamemnon's woman, or the woman that he captured, was a priest's daughter, and he got sent away to taken back with the priest. So in the Iliad, what they say in the story is that Agamemnon gives a solemn vow that he didn't touch Briseis, and that he gave her back to Achilles, I suppose, as a spoil of war. And it is still fucked up. Like it's still, you know, it's still the like it's still not a good position to be in for them. But what this book did was, even though Agamemnon gave the vow, he still like raped her in the book. And it just adds a lot of little elements like that that is totally not found in the Iliad. But then it just adds it on. It just adds little stuff like that on its own to make, like, it pretty much fully demonizes all the characters in the Iliad, all the men in the book. Fully demonizes them, fully portrays every single one of them as full on rapists and full on, you know, just like all they do is rape people. And then it just added a bunch of stuff that is never, conveyed or mentioned or even, like, you know, in the Iliad, and it just adds on to it, like. And I really didn't like that because I get that you're doing something really special here by expanding on an amazing story, and you're expanding on and you're giving a perspective of woman on the story, and I love that, and it's awesome. But man, the way the author wrote about it was so inaccurate. I felt like, and it was very forced as well. It was just so forced. You know, it was just so much raping going on in this book, just constant raping, and I was just like, dude, it was just so forced. Like the author could have written it much better, but Like, if anything, actually, she fucking like the fucking author totally wanted to portray the perspective of the woman, but then she just made all of them fucking sex slaves in the book. Like that's all she fucking did. So it wasn't even a good fucking way of doing it. So I actually really disliked this book, Silence of the Girls, and it was terribly written. And also there was like segments in the book where, well, like the characters, like they're ancient Greek characters, and they'll talk to each other, and they're like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, what are you talking about?" Like they'll have like they'll use like colloquial language in this book, and you don't use language like that in the Iliad or any of the translations because they're all like classics. But they use that shit in this book. So like, how why would Achilles go, "Oh, for fuck's sake, what are you talking about?" to like fucking to like, I don't know, Ajax or something. Like, why would they ever in any situation talk like that to each other? But in this book they do. So so it's just a terribly written book, I thought. Um, yeah, I just said yeah, I just said it was a disappointing read, and that it felt more like fan fiction, if anything. It really just fully felt like fan fiction to me. Like, yeah. So, I don't know what to tell you. So I did finish it, but I skimmed over it a bit, and it was just not very good. But yeah, cool notion though. Cool notion. And then this other author, Caitlin Doughty. Okay, it's kind of interesting, but all three of these books were written by women, which is quite interesting. That the last few books are, I totally love that. It's totally cool. It's just I think a personal bias for me is I'm not really like into sex being portrayed in media. Like when I don't really watch movies or shows that has a lot of sex and stuff in it. It's not really my vibe. So reading about it isn't really my vibe too. So, but just the way it did it in these two books was not very good at all. Anyways, this final book, From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty, this one was a pretty good read. This bookstore, Book Grocer in Newcastle City, um, they yeah they were closing down, and they do secondhand books there over there, and no, not sorry, I'm totally going off rails here, thinking about something else. But yeah, it's a bookstore that I've been frequenting for years now, and apparently they're closing down, and it's all the books are 50% off now. So I went last Saturday, and I went and bought 3 books there. So that might be the final time I buy a book there. But I actually bought the Foundation series from that bookstore, and a bunch of my books from that bookstore actually. But it's a good bookstore. It's very cheap as well. For some reason, like they sell their books for like $10 each, and now it's 50% off. It's like all the books are like $5. So the 3 books that I did buy was only like $20 in total, which is pretty cool. But this book that I bought, and they gave out a free tote bag as well, by the way. But anyways, so From Here to Eternity. Yeah, this one was it was a well it was really well written. Well, no, sorry, it was I don't like I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that well written. I would give it a 3.5. I really liked what it was trying to do as well, though. So what the author is, I think the author is somebody who is deeply in the business of burials and death and dying, and the idea of how we want to be buried and stuff like that, and how we want to go out. And it's a topic that not many of us discuss at all, but in this book it does discuss about it. And I guess the author travels around the world. She goes to Spain, Mexico, Japan, Indonesia, India, several places in America, and she tries to explore how the different cultures bury their living. So in Indonesia, for example, you'll mummify, the dead bodies, and then they actually live with them at home. Obviously, a very small percentage of the population, but like they actually live with them. Sorry, I'm just gonna check the battery. 18%. All right. But yeah, so and then in Japan as well, like they you have like Buddhist things lighting up, and monasteries and stuff, and it talks about how in Mexico you carry a lot of households have skulls in their house, well adorned, and they actually dream about the person of the skull, and then they can actually connect to the dead like that. And there's a lot of spirituality involved in the book, and I did like that, and it did discuss spirituality, and it discussed the different ways of dying, how some people want to get buried, some people want to get incinerated, and it discussed about the science of incinerating the body and stuff. So all the ideas and stuff he conveyed was really well done. But I just what how I felt was it was easy to read as well. It wasn't very complex at all. But I just felt like she traveled all these different places and experienced all these different cultures, and and it but I felt like she drew a lot on her own experiences of like being a tourist and not on the death and dying stage. It was a lot about her being a tourist in these cultures, and I felt like the book also she traveled all these worlds, and like all she could like write about was like three, like like she I felt like she could have written more about it since the book was more about it, but but it was good though. It was good. Maybe yeah, yeah, but but I won't criticize this book too much. I felt like it was still like really, I'm so glad that a book like this exists where it discusses death and dying and burial and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a good book. It was a decent read, and 3.5 stars I thought. So yeah, that's the three books here. Um, I don't know. I think I would probably recommend this one. I wouldn't recommend these two. Like, there's not a lot of things being like conveyed here as well. I felt like so like learning opportunities and stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like a good book also has some important messages behind it. Well, I mean, I guess it does, but maybe I'm being too critical. Um, but yeah, yeah. I think I'll leave it there because I think for book talk I just want it to be about books. I don't want to go on a rant about something else now. Like I'm not really bothered for that. But that's my three books for this book talk number 6. So thanks for listening.